Hello, Cancer. This is foxastrologyjon Tarot here with your astrology and tarot report for the month of September 2019. I'll have the astrology transits first, tarot reading afterwards. If you are a Cancer Ascendant, I will have some more specific information for you. If you're a Cancer Sun or Moon, it will still apply. But when I mention the houses, it's not going to be really much of information for you, as there aren't any really strong angles based on the transits in relation to your sun or moon sign, but these transits in general will still be affecting you. Obviously, it just won't be as strong. So, starting off on the 2nd of September, we have Venus squaring Jupiter. We also have the Sun in conjunction with Mars, and there's even sort of a loose little T-square arrangement. So overall, this transit is going to be a little bit more about balancing, a little bit more about taking a look at the energy coming in. It may be pressing you to be a little bit more like trying lots of different things and being very adaptable, but in the end, it may have you feeling a little scattered, a little uncentered, maybe a little overindulgent. So with the Sun in conjunction with Mars, both sitting in Leo, this is really about an energy, a really infusion of energy and will. Together, this may have you feeling like you really need to be active, really need to get out and do things. As a more masculine energy from Mars, this may have you feeling a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more single-minded and focused on those things. But together with Venus squaring Jupiter, we're going to have it feeling a little bit, like I mentioned, a little indulgent. With the T-square, we have Venus, Jupiter, and Neptune, creating this sort of a T-square. And opposite Jupiter is Taurus. So that's some earth energy, maybe having you feeling a little sensitive in that area of your life. You know, possessions, progress, groundedness, and moving forward sort of in that Taurian way. That would be sort of a sensitive area for you. But for a T-square, there typically is some sort of an outlet to help you sort of channel whatever tension, channel whatever frustration you might have. And in this case, it's the North Node, which sits in Gemini right now, and Saturn sitting in Sagittarius. So those two energies are really going to have you feeling sort of pulled in two different directions. On one hand, your life purpose, your passion, where you feel most engaged in your life, in your body, you know, enjoying yourself. And on the other hand, we have where Saturn sits in Sagittarius, a sense of responsibility and commitment, and this sort of long-term progress, gradual progress, and determination. So a recommendation for this transit is to maybe try organizing some sort of social event, some sort of business event. Try to minimize any sort of risks that you can really be aware of. Like I mentioned, feeling sort of scattered and a little indulgent, trying, you know, all 31 flavors sort of a thing. This transit may be a little bit more about seeing life from other people's perspectives. And so as a Cancer, working through this transit, I feel like there's really a focus on your second house. If you're a Gemini Ascendant, this focus on your second house of material possessions, material belongings, financial security, is going to be a big push in that direction. Maybe looking at work, maybe looking at the job or a pay raise, that sort of thing. With Jupiter in Scorpio, this is going to maybe affect your ability to really go out and have fun and be creative and take risks. With Neptune in Aquarius, this is going to be a push into sort of the 8th house, the secret life, maybe any secrets you might have. And with the North Node sitting in Gemini, that's in your 12th house if you have a Gemini Ascendant. This seems to be a big focus on you, on your personal experience right now. Not so much about social activities. There is Saturn's currently sitting in your 6th house, so that's more about your home life, your health, your regular daily habits. So it really does seem like a lot closer to home during this transit. There's not much going on in the top half of the chart, except for your 12th house, which is more about the unconscious, more about the limitless and the boundaryless connection you have with the universe. So in this case for you, Gemini Ascendant, I would say this is a little bit more of a focus on you and your experience. Trying to learn from other people's points of view and other people's perspectives to help you really open your mind and open your boundaries to expand and to grow in this transit. So I brought out the Ascension card. I used the Cathar Tarot to sort of bring some parallels in from the tarot world to help explain maybe how this transit might go for you. The recommendation for this Ascension card is this balance between willpower and emotion, between long-term purposes and goals, and maybe your short-term experiences and whatever struggles you may have in the physical body. So this balance will really allow you to move forward and to kind of have the best of both sides, to understand when to focus on those long-term goals and when to focus on your right now experience, and learning to flow between the two from moment to moment based on the situation will really help you during this transit. Next, on the 10th, we have the Sun in opposition to Neptune. This is going to, in separations, I see with oppositions, it's more of like a separated feeling like they don't really bleed through in your experience. The Sun being your essence, your core energy, your core of who you are, and your tendencies energetically, versus Neptune, which is really about your dreams, your aspirations, your connection with the collective unconscious. So seeing as it's in opposition, you're going to feel sort of disconnected, sort of confused, a little bit more susceptible to confusion, at least. I would suggest practically avoiding committing to any serious engagements, serious relationships, anything having to do with something you feel will affect you long term. The key thing here is to take a look at the kinds of questions and the kinds of answers that you're providing and accepting. You want to be as clear as possible. Look at yes or no questions, avoiding open-ended questions whenever you can when they're involving like commitments. And don't provide or accept unclear answers as much as possible. And also whenever we have an opposition with Neptune, it's a good idea to avoid heavy chemicals, heavy drugs. This could be alcohol or coffee or those sort of stimulants or downers or whatever. Try to avoid those whenever possible. Minimize the use of that, because that will tend to affect you much, much stronger. So that will generally be the feeling. I've brought out the Seven of Love. This is sort of like the card that talks about, building castles in the clouds. Maybe during this transit you may feel really swept up with concepts and ideas and dreams and theories of things you want to do, things you want to accomplish that aren't really that grounded in a practical, realistic way. And so the best way of navigating this is to really take a look at maybe the way that you approach them and consider more practical ways of doing things. Consider how you can, shelf your ideas, shelf them for a time, allow them to sort of digest and sink in, and at a later time, once this transit is over, take a look at them again and see what you can get out of them, see if there's anything good and useful to go with. So later on the 13th, we have the Sun trining Pluto. Now in trines, this is less noticeable in your experience, but it's still happening. Trines are easy, trines are effortless, trines are sort of under the surface going on, but still beneficial to you. Now with Pluto trining the Sun, this is going to be an impulse for you, Cancer, to really have a sense of leadership, to really want to make changes in your life, to really transform maybe even who you are or how you see yourself, or the actions that you take or the plans that you have. This may also be pushing you to really dig deep in your life. This could be with your relationships, it could be at work, It could be with even just knowledge, secret knowledge, but ultimately the key point here is the application of that knowledge. It's being and doing, not so much absorbing information and categorizing things or organizing things, so much as it is doing things. I brought up the Lady of Love here. Her representation is one of honesty, one of really being present in herself, being confident in herself, knowing herself well, being sort of like being sitting in her power and being present in that power. This may have you feeling really confident. This is probably a great time for, like I said, taking action, making big changes in your life, considering some longer goals that you have and how your current situation is in alignment with those goals, and whatever changes you might need to make in order to meet those goals. Later on the 21st, we have Jupiter squaring Neptune. Now I mentioned there's a lot of squares. Don't be too hesitant. Don't think of like generally, not going outside during these things. Squares are all about growth. They're all about stretching yourself and all about balance. Squares tend to represent this energy of needing to push through resistance for a longer period of time than you're used to in order to get what it is that you want, in order to accomplish that goal. Now here, the Squire of Swords I brought up because this relates to this transit in the sense that you may be feeling sort of overly optimistic, maybe a tendency to battle internally over this idea of work versus play. This youthful figure, sort of the Squire of Swords, is just learning just now about, the reality, the truth. And so this naivety, this innocence may have you feeling like finally you don't feel so jaded or bitter about situations. You feel like you don't have so much of a past to worry about or to influence the way that you make decisions. So roll with that in the sense that this is allowing you to really consider new options and consider ways and places that you couldn't have done before. But in this case, you really want to look at balancing that youthfulness with some long-term vision. Consider avoiding shortcuts, avoiding anything that might even be closely related to like a cheat or, like I mentioned, like a shortcut. You want to look at long-term goals, practical ways of doing things, incremental progress, little steps that get you where you want to go long-term, and that will really help. On the 25th, we have Venus squaring Saturn. Now this is going to affect strongly your self-care, your appreciation of beauty, your appreciation of joy and pleasure, because when it comes to Saturn, you're going to feel all of a sudden that this is a sensitive area in your life. You're going to feel like you're going to feel like you need to really control and hang on to something, but it's actually going to slip even more out of your hands. Now with this involving Venus, I feel like the message here is you're going to maybe feel stressed, feel tired, maybe sort of divided between you and your friends or you and your partner, maybe even feeling a little lonely and defeated. The key thing here is to look at rest. Consider this transit on the 25th as an opportunity for you to rest and recuperate. Treat yourself to some comforts, to allow yourself to slow down and sort of go through this transit at least feeling like you're taking care of yourself. And that's really what the Four of Love is about. It's about rest, it's about recuperation, it's about pacing yourself for the long run, because maybe you're feeling like things just aren't quite going your way, and maybe you've had a couple of losses recently at work or in general projects, that sort of thing. So keep an eye out for that, and that will go really well. Later, we have the Seven of Love I'm bringing back, but it's reversed in this case, because on the 30th, we have Pluto squaring Venus, or I should say the other way around, Venus squaring Pluto. This transit is going to bring in this sort of when it comes to a square, once again, I mentioned this idea of having to push through lots of resistance before finally getting what you want, and feeling like that gratification is delayed beyond a point where you feel it's tolerable. In this case, Pluto squaring Venus is going to make you feel sort of obsessive, or feel like there's this big struggle, dramatic struggle to win or to gain control or power over something in your life. I feel like it's this Moby Dick and Captain Ahab sort of thing, where you feel sort of infatuated or obsessed with achieving this goal, with dominating this goal, or generally winning. So keep in mind during this time that your state of mind may be a little foggy. You may feel like there's an inability to really be joyful and to have fun and to be happy with what it is that you have. So try and focus during this time on being grateful, on recognizing the gifts that you have in your life, the resources that you have, the relationships that you have, and this will really allow yourself to sort of balance out this energy coming in, and allow yourself to be paced, to slow down, and to allow yourself to appreciate what it is that you have. This is ultimately going to push you to accomplish something really great. So something is coming through for you this month. Pluto coming in, Jupiter coming in, Venus coming in a couple of times. This is really, I think, a transformation for you, being able to experience more joy and experience more material progress. As I mentioned before, the second house, the fifth house, the eighth house, the 12th house, and the sixth house, they're all very personal, very inner world, inner experience sort of situation here. So this is really about you. This is really about your experience this month. So try to enjoy that. Try to consider this month more ways of spending time with yourself, maybe having some more time alone, journaling, writing down your goals, visualizing what it is you're trying to manifest, and that will really help. So I'm going to pull a couple of cards just to see if there are any messages for you, Cancer, and we'll wrap up. Like I mentioned before, be sure to check out the video I've made on love. Well, this will cover more details about relationships or romance in general. Whether you're single or in a partnership, it will have something relatable for you for September. Okay, so keep an eye out for messages this month. If you don't know how to do that, biggest thing is to just consider being more aware of your surroundings and seeing what kind of information your surroundings are providing you. What this really is about checking in with where your mind is at. If you could constantly seeing in your environment negative situations, negative messages, this is a key insight into where you're at emotionally, where you're at mentally. But ultimately, the hawk is basically saying the universe is trying to communicate with you. It's trying to encourage you. It's trying to guide you on your path, onto your goals, onto your accomplishments, onto your progression as a spirit here. So keep an eye out for synchronicities, things that don't typically belong and sort of stick out to you, and really look into what they mean. Maybe even take a notepad with you and write those things down, and that way when you get home you could take a look at them, or you can just write it on your phone if you have a note program in there. The key thing here is looking for repetitive numbers, repetitive signs. It could be people that are bringing up the same subject to you, and it's like really just not a coincidence. The other thing here is the fox. The fox is talking about taking your talents, taking your gifts, and using them during this month to adapt to a changing situation, allowing your strengths to really show through a challenging situation. Will really teach you a confidence in yourself, in your abilities, as this month may bring you into new situations where you feel unfamiliar. Being able to count on those strengths that you have instead of focusing on what you don't have, thinking of how you can solve your situation on something that you can really count on in yourself, something you're really confident in. So whether that's your personal skills, like material, maybe you're creative, whether that's your personal skills in your communication and how you're able to relate with each other, with other people in your life, and to encourage them or to communicate with them in a great way. Or if in general it's just about having a positive attitude to your approach. If you really feel like you can count on yourself for that, that's what the fox is talking about, is adapting. There may even be some travel involved for you. The fox tends to be a protector for travel. Saturn is sitting in Sagittarius, which is a sign of travel. But ultimately the message here is adaptability and looking for messages coming for you from the universe and allowing those to help guide you through this process. So I look forward to your feedback. Please feel free to comment below. Let me know how I'm doing. If you want to encourage me on my progress here on the channel, let me know how I'm doing with a like. Just click the like button. You can also subscribe if you want to catch October's report. We're doing this every month. I also do weekly readings, weekly choose your message style readings where you get to choose different messages and it's more unique for you. I also do occasionally in-depth transit videos where you get to have a closer look at the more influential transits that are happening from month to month. So have a good month, Cancer. See ya.